last but not least, we're going to talk about paragraph proofs. And before we do that, let's go ahead and write down the definition of paragraph proof, which is a paragraph that explains why the conjecture for a given situation is true. Pause this, write that down. Ready, set, go. All right, I'm going to move on. What are we given? And this number one, that C is between A and B, and AC is congruent to segment CB. Write a paragraph proof to show that C is the midpoint of AB. Perfect. Okay, first of all, given that C is between, so this is our given. And I want to underline that because step one is write out the given and prove statements. Write out the given and prove statements. So let's do this. Number one is given. And what were we given? C, just write the bigger C, is between A and B. And segment AC is congruent to segment CB. Okay? What do we want to prove? Your lesson will have a little more room here. I realized we need more room, and I redid it, but not for this, so there's that. C is the midpoint of segment AB. C is the midpoint of segment AB. By the way, if you're ever writing this on a computer and you can't write that segment line above it, you just write out the word segment beforehand. So you'll see that happen at times. Step two is draw a diagram and label any given info. So, what are we given? C is between A and B. So, I'm going to draw this out. And since I'm trying to prove it's the midpoint, I'm going to go ahead and draw it as the midpoint. A, B, or AC, excuse me. And B. And then, what are we told also? AC is congruent to CB. So, AC is congruent to CB. We can see that this is clearly the midpoint from the drawing, but we still have to go through a proof to prove it. And then the last step 3 for paragraph proof is write the proof. So we're really going to spell out what it is we're doing here. Okay? So here's what I would say. We have heard of a thing called betweenness. In fact, that is in your toolkit. And what does betweenness do? Betweenness tells us that A, B, and C are collinear. Right? If C is between A and B, then betweenness tells us that they're collinear. So they form a line. And it tells us that AC plus CB equals AB, right? The sum of the parts equal the whole. So if I were to add up this section and this section, it's equal to the whole section. Okay? If segment AC is congruent to CB, if segment AC is congruent to segment CB, then by definition of congruence, AC equals CB. Now, the definition of a midpoint says that if C is between points A and B and AC equals CB, then C is the midpoint of AB. So the definition of a midpoint says that if C is between points A and B, and AC equals CB, then C is the midpoint of segment AB. Boom. Look at that. That's why it's called a paragraph proof. You got to write out your thoughts. We're going to do a lot of these, and most of what we are going to be a lot of fill in the blanks. But take a moment, pause this. I know you need to take some time, write it down. And ready, set, moving on. Let's look at this one. So this will be more akin to what you're going to see. You're going to have choices, little drop-down boxes if you're doing it online. It says, given AE is congruent to DB, okay? C is the midpoint of segment AE and DB. We want to prove that CA equals CB. So we say that AE, right, this whole distance is congruent to DB. So these line segments are the same length. And we're saying C is the midpoint of both of these. If C is the midpoint, then that means AC is congruent to CE. And we're also saying that DC is congruent to CB. Here's the deal. If they're the same length, I also know that all of these little mini segments are congruent to each other, but what we want to prove, our ultimate goal, is that CA, right here, is congruent to CB. So let's talk about this. We have choices. C is the midpoint of segment AE and DB. Segment AE is congruent to segment DB. AE equals DB. Multiplication property and substitution property. So let's talk it out. So first of all, we got to start out with our given, right? We're given C is the midpoint of AE and DB. So C is that, I'm going to have to abbreviate, right? Midpoint of segment AE. Notice they wrote out segment AE. It's the same as writing this. And DB. That was our given. Because of that, what do we know? The distance CA is equal to CE, which we have labeled right here. Maybe I'll use a highlighter to help me out. So we know that CA is equal to CE, right? Which also is equal to 1/2 AE. So since we've cut this in half, each of these segments is equal to half of AE, is all we're saying there. And we know that CD, so CD right here, is equal to CB, which is also 1/2 of DB, 1/2 of that entire line, which makes sense. It's being cut in half, right? By the definition of a midpoint. We are given that AE is congruent to DB. So, then we know that AE, so that length is equal to the length of DB. By definition of congruence. Or congruent segments. By the multiplication property, 1/2 AE must equal 1/2 DB, correct? Right? If these two lines are the same length, then half of one is equal to half of the other, is all it's saying right there. So by the substitution property, didn't we just say that CA is equal to 1/2 of AE and CB is equal to 1/2 of DB? So we can substitute CA for 1/2 AE and CB for 1/2 DB, and we can say that CA equals CB by the substitution property. Look at that. You can kind of cross these out as you go, by the way. Because we had some extras we didn't need. All right. So, guys, this is your intro into paragraph proofs. I know a lot of this you're thinking, hey, I would not have logically thought of that. That's why we're going to work through this. It is a work in progress. With that said, you've got some homework. Let's get rolling. Peace out.